Hello. This is Gresh here, and I am super excited that I'm done with training. If you don't know, I actually went through this process where I'm becoming a franchise broker. So, what I really hope to do with a lot of these videos is start to give you a little bit more insight into what that looks like and what that should be. As someone who has not owned a franchise but has built a business and has built that business into trying to make it more into a franchise with the systems, the processes, and things like that. I really enjoyed learning a lot more about franchise brokering. I went through the process with FBA, Franchise Brokers Association, but prior to this, I went through a fair amount of due diligence where I talked with different organizations, I researched different organizations, I did validation calls within those organizations, and I was really between three different organizations ultimately. I didn't necessarily want to buy a franchise. So I was in this sweet spot where I feel like I have entrepreneurial tendencies, but I also wanted something that was a little bit more structured that I can learn from and learn from a lot quicker than it would be if I started it completely from scratch. Now, don't get me wrong. I definitely feel like I am that person that does like to build things from scratch, but I think that there's a time and place for everything. You have to realize what you're trying to do or what you're not trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, what your ultimate goal is, and see how you can marry all those things together into this perfect fit. So when I was going through the different organizations, that was one of the really big things that kind of stuck out to me is that I'm still very much so involved in our digital marketing business. I still also create a tremendous amount of content with CB Nation. So it's just balancing all those things to see what we can do to really make an impact as best as possible. And the reason I love this idea of franchise brokerage, because as I was thinking about potentially selling a property, I was wondering if I would invest it into franchising. So one of my initial thoughts was like, hey, let's do a maybe coaching business, a business coaching business. So that could be very complementary to everything that I'm doing. But the more I started to read about franchise brokerage, I felt like it was something that was really maybe something that I think I was built and made for, mainly because it's more of a matchmaker. It's more essentially a building a bridge. Just to give you a high level view of like what a broker does. And don't get me wrong, you hear the phrase broker, you'll hear the phrase coach. You might even hear the phrase consultant as well too, but there's a lot of interchangeable names around what exactly a franchise broker does, but essentially you can even hear agent too. But essentially what a franchise broker does is they help bridge the gap between a person that is interested in starting some type of venture, starting a business, and then the existing brands or organizations, the franchisors that can make that possible. So every franchise has a different criteria on what they're looking for, who they think is a great fit. There's also over 40 different industries. I myself, with and through FBA, have access to about 1,000 different brands. So there's lots and lots of opportunities for people to become entrepreneurs, but we're always, of course, thinking about your Chick-fil-A's, your McDonald's, basically franchises like that. But I think the really cool thing that I've learned tremendous amount just in the short period of time is being able to kind of understand first and foremost the person, who they are, what they want to accomplish, what that looks like, being very, 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 very good at listening and trying to match them up to those franchise opportunities. My goal and what I do is not to quote unquote sell those opportunities. It's basically to try to be a matchmaker and see if there's a good fit. And then that's where the franchisors start to create more of a relationship. They start to do more of an evaluation. And if everything goes well, then the actual person that is looking for the franchise, which is the franchisee, that's the title, they get awarded that franchise, but they also have to go through that process. It's my responsibility kind of through that process to kind of guide them through what that looks like. So understanding that full journey, also understanding like some of the knowledge and information that I've acquired over the years from running the digital marketing business for the last 11 years to the tremendous amount of content that we've created from blogs, 6,000 blog posts, 1,500 plus podcasts, 600 or so, videos. There's lots and lots of content there. How do you create this opportunity for people to succeed? So that's why I really thought it was a great fit to be a broker, potentially then starting a franchise. But don't get me wrong, as somebody who is very much so involved in a lot of different things and truly believes in the idea of creating generation wealth and multiple streams of income, I'm looking more into another franchise as well too. So I thought it would give me a lot of insight, but I also felt like it was a way that I didn't necessarily want to start this from scratch. I've read a lot, I heard that you can, become a franchise broker by just developing individual broker agreements. And you can reach out to people and make sure that you are creating that connection, that opportunity. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go about doing this, but why do that when you can partner with an organization that makes it a lot easier? So that's essentially what I did. For the last 4 or 5 weeks, I've gone through FBA's FTI program, their curriculum, to learn as much as you can about being a successful franchise broker. And it was a lot. So pretty much each of the first 3 or 4 weeks was pretty much on your own time. We had a few classes here and there where we learned some things, but we pretty much were able to kind of go through the curriculum, the modules on your own time, however, and whatever you saw fit, that can work around your time. So still managing Blue 16 and of course being able to kind of make sure I'm still doing the podcast and things. It was easy to kind of fit those things in. But this week was actually the live week. They call it the live week because people fly out to Orlando, Florida, and they actually go through the live week. I didn't fly out. I actually did it virtually, but 2 of my other classmates actually did go and had an in-person opportunity. So they had dinner. They learned a lot, literally live and in person. The trainer also taught a lot about like his experience, because it's an actual broker that's out in the field that has been able to build his business. There also is an internal broker as well too, who taught us a lot of information. And what I can just say is it was a lot. So I'm definitely gonna go through my notes and extract a lot of the really great nuggets and information that I might create a different document for, and things that you can learn. But I'm a really big believer, in order to see further, you stand on the shoulders of giants. So being able to kind of learn from the people that have been doing this, but also have more experience, is ultimately how I felt like I was going to get better. So I'm really looking forward to kind of breaking down a lot of the tips and tidbits and kind of work through those to have like a master list that I can always go back to. But one of the really big things, and the reason I really wanted to create this, is we were actually having lunch. I was, of course, having mine virtually. And Sabrina, the CEO of Franchise Brokers Association, mentioned you should document this. You should really document your journey, the steps that you're taking, the things that you're doing. And I thought that would be a really cool experience. And while I have created some videos around franchising, I haven't really created the videos around my actual experience. And I think this is a really great opportunity, especially if you have built a franchise, if you have been in that experience. But I also think it's really great for those people that are interested in entrepreneurship and business and really looking for the best ways to do that. Not only do we have within our inventory, like I mentioned, like 1,000 brands, we also have business opportunities as well too, which I think are a little bit more of a hybrid for the more entrepreneurial type. And the reason being is that typically you don't have to have a lot of the stringent rules and regulations. But you also understand that there's something called emerging brands, which are those brands that have less of a market share, I guess you can say, but they're starting to build and grow. Usually they have a little bit more flexibility around marketing, or potentially they're building their operations, so they may not necessarily have all the people in place versus a more of a established brand. So it's just understanding the kind of the paradigm of the different types of organizations, the different places and ways that you can work, and kind of building everything from there. So it was super helpful to really kind of drill down and hear a little bit more from their experience, how they run their brokerage, but also see ways that you can actually incorporate that into your business. But probably the biggest takeaway, I would say, more than anything else, is just be yourself. It's kind of like finding your footing, understanding exactly how you want to build your business. One of the big things that comes up all the time on our podcast is, how do you define being a CEO? And there's no right or wrong answer to that. It's how you define it. So the more that you're able to kind of take a step and understand what your goals, aspirations, and dreams are and work backwards from there is going to give you that opportunity to architect, to create those steps to take you to where you want to be. And I think that's one of the big answers that a lot of people don't answer, but they really need to. And it ends up being something that's huge. The other really big thing to kind of understand is that we are ultimately building a business. And while I don't necessarily feel like I'm starting from zero, because I do have the digital marketing business, leads ends up being one of the biggest things is how are you going to market branding and get leads and opportunities. But also understanding how are you going to help people through that journey. I think my experience in terms of being a podcaster, being able to ask questions, listen to answers, I think is going to be extremely helpful because a lot of what we want to do from a matchmaking standpoint is understand exactly, what a person wants to achieve and how they want to kind of show up and make an impact in the world and try to match that up with a potential franchise opportunity. So it requires a lot of listening, it requires a high emotional intelligence as well too, is something I heard. But just understanding how to be that matchmaker, you have to be really, really locked in on the person. And I absolutely love that. I see like every opportunity as being like essentially like a podcast where I get to learn as much as I can about the person to hopefully make that match to the right cultural fit, but also the right industry an opportunity that's there. So with over 40 different industries, there's a lot of opportunity that's there. So it's so important to really kind of drill down. But I think one of the really cool things is that we also learned a lot around the different brands. We actually had a speed speed networking or brand presentation might be a better way to say it, where each of the brands actually came and presented exactly what their brand was. So I thought that was really awesome just to get a little bit more exposure to the different brands that are out there. But we also have access to an inventory that has a lot of information, including one of the key terms you'll hear me talk about a lot, which is the FDD, franchise disclosure document. Every franchise has to give details about that franchise, and typically you'll get that franchise disclosure document if you decide to learn more about the brand. You get invited to learn about them, and then you get a formal registration and you go through that process. You'll learn more about the FDD. But one of the biggest things that I think was hammered home over and over again is that the franchisors actually have a process and criteria of who they look for. This is an application process. It's an interview. It is not a guarantee just because you have the money, just because you feel like you may be successful or not successful, that you are a great fit for their system. So they have a certain criteria of what's going to help them to succeed. And really, if you step into their standpoint and from their vantage point, they want to make sure that you're set up for success. They want to make sure that you're going to be able to follow the system and that it's going to be set up for you to succeed. A lot of times, really entrepreneurial people may not be a great fit for an established brand if there's a lot of pushback there. Vice on the other side, if there's more of a up and coming brand, then maybe that would be a really great fit. So it's just understanding all those things when you're making that connection, because you understand more of the culture of what they're trying to accomplish, what they're trying to do, and how that fits well with everything you're hoping to accomplish. But overall, it was a really great experience. I've learned so much. And I might make another video where I go through all of those different things that I've learned, but I think at the very least I want to kind of show up and at least make some audio or video just to tell you a little bit more on like how it is going through this experience. Don't get me wrong, feeling very excited to get to start this opportunity, but also there's a lot of like, okay, well now it gets going. Our trainer, who was phenomenal, one of the things she told me prior to us starting this live week was essentially that the biggest impediment to people really getting going and doing their thing is actually just getting started. So one of the things that I did prior to our last day of training was I actually posted on Facebook that I just changed my job. I added a new job to let people know that I was starting this. I had a little bit. The website's already been up and going and still continue to kind of improve that. But the really big thing that I wanted to do was just try to do something to get started. I put it out there on Facebook that I was getting started with this. And I think a lot of times perfection, and don't let the good get in the way of the great. Don't let the perfect get in the way of the possible. That's the quote that really resonated with me. More than anything else, because we can so often be stuck on making everything perfect that we never get started. And in this position, and frankly, I would probably say in most positions, unless you're like a doctor operating on somebody, if you don't get it right, it's okay. It's an opportunity to progress. It's an opportunity to improve. And I think that's one of the key points that I really want to hammer home. So I really hope like through this journey, I'll be able to share and capture a little bit more on the good times, and probably more the not so good times, the actual struggles of what it is like to run a business. I'm starting this business, like, again, I don't want to say from zero, because I don't think that's fair to the overall process. I've had my digital marketing business for 11 years. I've had and interviewed a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners. But one of the biggest things I would always say, the time machine question that I ask on the I'm CEO podcast, is I said, if you were to hop into a time machine, what would you tell your younger business self? My answer would be that success is not a straight and linear path. I always joke and say success is very much so like a plate of spaghetti, and believe I'm going to be going through that process. So I hope to document that as much as possible. It won't be as clean as and polished, if this is even clean and polished, as this probably is, but I do want to make sure that I am sharing what that journey looks like, what the steps are to that journey, because I think it's going to be really impactful for people that might want to be franchise brokers, but frankly for everybody that's starting a business. So I've already, built the website myself, but that's because we have the digital marketing company. So that was something really quick that I could put in place. I claimed all the social media profiles. I did all of that. But again, those things were things because I've already had that digital marketing experience. But don't get it. Understand, I'll say this, that those are things that I wasn't going to spend a lot of time on. My goal was to get those things out of the way so that on day one, I can start focusing on the things that I need to focus on. And frankly, as much as I'm starting on Monday per se, I'm actually starting now. I want to create this content. I want to start letting people know about what it is that I'm doing. I'm going high overdrive into setting up meetings, talking with people, having conversations so that they can know about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. So just to kind of give you a little bit more insight into what I'm doing, the business name is called Blue Star Franchise. The reason I named the franchise, the brokerage, Blue Star Franchise, is because my dog, who passed away as I was learning about this opportunity, she passed away from cancer. And frankly, it's been really, really hard. You don't realize how embedded she was in our day to day until you start to realize life without her. So as I was kind of thinking about the name of the business and why I wanted to call it what I wanted to call it, I came to this because we initially got her, we called her Blue Star. I was living at home with my family. And then I moved. I knew I was moving, so I ended up taking Star with me. So we called her Blue Star initially. There's definitely a Cowboys reference if you're a Cowboys fan, and it's hard being a Cowboys fan as we're recording right now. But nevertheless, I am a diehard fan. We ended up calling her Star after that. It was just a lot shorter. But I wanted to call her Blue Star because the way that we found her, we actually rescued her. She's a German Shepherd Lab mix. We found out she was actually German Shepherd Lab, and she was also a chow as well too, had the purple tongue. And one of the reasons that I wanted to name it after her is because when we went to South Carolina, where we found her, where she was born, we weren't looking for a dog. And it just happened that Star ended up being there. So Star ended up coming into our lives, and it completely changed our lives. So I definitely miss her tremendously, and it's even hard to kind of talk through these things. I actually broke down a little bit, I got choked up. Maybe broke down is too strong. Got choked up. Even explaining to everybody on the first day of live week why I named it Blue Star Franchise. And it was really after her because I felt like that connection changed our lives. And that's the same thing I wanted to do with the brokerage. People that are thinking about getting entrepreneurship and business, they have their different goals, dreams, aspirations. It might be generational wealth. It might be creating an example for the future generations. It might be whatever it might be at the end of the day, I wanted to make sure to create this opportunity for people to be able to succeed. And what I really hope to do is to make it easier for people to be able to be successful in entrepreneurship and business. And I believe like franchising is a great way to do that, because you're not just learning from me, you're not just hiring maybe the right consultant. You're actually looking into a proven business to see what it is to succeed. Through the FDD, which is this disclosure document that franchises have to disclose certain information. It gives you so much insight into a business to see and increase the likelihood of success. It doesn't guarantee it, but it increases that likelihood because you know more of what you're getting into. And I think that's so powerful. Now, of course, is there, generally speaking, going to be more of an investment versus starting from scratch? Absolutely. All across the board, you're probably going to run into that. But the question comes, are you willing to go through the failures and mistakes to reach that success? And for some, the answer might be absolutely yes. When I started my digital marketing company, there wasn't even a franchising that talked about digital marketing as far as I knew. And I was willing to go through that. For the brokerage, not so much. So it's more of a business opportunity. It's not necessarily a franchise, it's more of a business opportunity. But for other things that I'm looking to do that are a little bit more innovative, maybe I do decide that, hey, I don't want to go the franchising route, because there may not even be a franchise that does those things. If we're talking about starting a podcast, maybe there's not even a podcast franchise, which as far as I know, there isn't. But if I'm starting a restaurant, maybe potentially I do decide that I want to invest in a franchise. If I want to start a staffing company, maybe I do want to do it through a franchise. If I do want to do a home improvement company or home remodeling company or mold remediation company, all these things, there are people that have been doing this and you can lock into that. So I think that's where the incredible opportunity is that I get to make that opportunity come to life and get to kind of see how that could fit. So that's what I want to do. That's the reason it's called Blue Star Franchise. I always and have been saying, we help you find your Blue Star franchise, and we help light the way to your franchise, success. That's our motto and our tagline that we really focus on. But it all came together, and I am very grateful for this journey. I'm grateful to Star, and when you look at the logo, you'll see like at the top star, the top point of the star is actually her ear. One of the things about Star is her ear wasn't always pointy. She was a German Shepherd, looked like a German Shepherd, but her ear used to fold down a lot. So in the logo, you'll see a little bit of the hair, the German Shepherd hair, and then even the folding of the ear a little bit. So that's just a homage, I guess you could say, to her. But it's also a homage to that process. It's just a memory of how a lot of times when you make that ideal connection, people's lives can change in so many different ways. And as I start to realize more and more and more the impact that she made in my life, it's when you start to get a little bit more awareness around how impactful this can be. So with that being said, again, I'll be making a lot shorter videos, I imagine, talking a little bit more about my journey, what that looks like, and hopefully, just get to give a little bit more insight into people that are, frankly, new brokers, but also people that are just starting businesses and what that looks like, and came up with the business name and all those things. But honestly, those things are extremely important. But the most important thing is going to be getting out there, talking to people, hearing about that journey, the steps. That's what I really hope to provide in a lot of these videos. And of course, some information around franchising. So this is Gress signing out. I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day. Wishing you the best, and stay safe. Take care.